Dawn in Port Lincoln sees mussel farmers bringing in their catch. Yamba Mussel Holdings harvests up to 40 tonnes of native blue mussels a week from the sheltered waters of Boston and Proper Bay, 22 kilometres away. The mussels are iced as soon as they're brought on board.
Mark, show us, is that a good size?
Yep, so what we do here is we always harvest what's the fattest mussel. So it's what you eat is inside of it.
Company General Manager Mark Andrews says Yamba contributes to about 60% of Australia's mussel production, with an annual turnover of $20 million. Its success can be attributed to natural larvae floating in surrounding protected bays.
I moved here for one reason, and that was the natural spat. Port Lincoln is so unique at the numbers of natural spat larvae that spawn and settle from May through to September every year.
But he says his business is at risk from a proposed desalination plant to be built at Billy Lights Point in Port Lincoln. Its intake and discharge pipes are expected to reach out into the surrounding waters of Boston and Proper Bays that the business relies on.
My main concern about a desalination plant that has an intake that takes up 5 gigalitres of water per year is what they're talking initially. A percentage of that spat will go in the intake. What percentage? Nobody can determine that.
The company's operations manager, Andy Dyer, shares Mark's concerns. He's checking on the crews who harvest mussels from one of the company's 24 sites.
Howdy, Tomo. What up, looking good? Yeah, not bad, actually. Yeah.
The prized mussel spat settles and grows on ropes left out at sea. Tonight, this haul will be shipped to Adelaide, then interstate, and also onto international destinations like Singapore, Hong Kong and Dubai. Andy and his wife launched the mussel farming industry in Port Lincoln more than 25 years ago.
We established that there were natural mussels in the bay. They were attached to yacht club moorings. They were attached to some of the early tuna farming cages. So we decided that we would take the plunge and try and develop a mussel industry here. And to date, it's been, I think, quite a success story for Port Lincoln.
He's concerned about SA Water's proposed project being placed so close to a thriving aquaculture zone.
We can't say whether a desalination plant is going to affect the mussel sediment, but neither can they. So from an aquaculture perspective, we always have to do things under the precautionary principle.
Marine scientist Paul McShane has been consulting Yamba on SA Water's latest plans for a desal plant. He says the unknowns about mussel larvae movement lead to a risk that can't be quantified.
On the smaller scale, in terms of the proximity of the desal plant to the mussel growing area, we don't know what the impact will be. There's certainly going to be an impact, we just don't know what the level of it is.
Port Lincoln's Deputy Mayor says the council does not support the project's location, and many concerns from the community have been communicated to council.
Their concerns are the risk for the aquaculture industry that is based here on the bay. The aquaculture industry is one of the biggest employers in the area, employing directly and indirectly about a quarter of the population, or closer to half probably. And what we've got is those concerns about, are we putting an industry that is a sustainable food source at risk?
Bungala traditional owners of the region have also voiced opposition to the project but declined to comment. And time is running out for SA Water to provide reliable drinking water for the Eyre Peninsula. Water supply issues were identified from the late 2000s.
Today, Port Lincoln heavily relies on the Yulee South Basin for its water. About 75% of the region's water is drawn from this underground source, and that's where we're headed to now.
Water is drawn up from the basin through these pipes and pumped back into tanks that store water for the residents. It's predicted the basin will be depleted next year, with increased salinity already detected in some of the production bores. And the region's Landscape Board has recently announced it's urgently reviewing its water allocation plan, which is why SA Water argues the plans for the desalination plant should go ahead. It would take around a year to build, and if the project is delayed, it says it would have to consider staged water restrictions.
We are seeking to build a desalination plant in order to protect the water security of the Eyre Peninsula, to ensure that the customers of today have water, but also we can continue to support the customers of the future.
SA Water's Peter Seltzikis is showing what a desalination plant looks like on a much larger scale. He says Port Lincoln's proposed desalination plant would have minimal risk to the mussel industry.
The studies that we've done recognise that there is less than 0.1% chance of mussel spat in the bay being entrained within the intake of the desalination plant.
But the mussel industry is wary of the studies carried out by SA Water and the state's Research and Development Institute, saying risk could not entirely be ruled out, and the plans have been rushed through now the Yulee Basin is in stress. Mark Andrews is well aware of the water security issues, but says alternatives should have been considered earlier.
So Mark, if you hold this process up, we're going to have to put water restrictions on the lower Eyre Peninsula. Well, it's not my fault. You know, I've been around doing my thing. You've been around for a long time, a lot longer, looking for water security and locations before now. So what have you been doing all this time?
SA Water says it's already considered over 20 sites in the region.
We have been through an extensive process of review, and we're very focused on delivering a desalination plant as soon as we possibly can to ensure the water security of the Eyre Peninsula.
I've set up this business, employed 76 people, and invested a lot of money with the leading shellfish mussel farmer, grower, marketer in Australia. We're leading in all the areas of new product development and everything else. I can't afford for any risk to my business.
A development application for the desalination plant is expected to be submitted by mid-year.